Is it possible that we might be ignoring a big clue that's right in front of our face? Is it possible that the person we think is going to get cut is not going to get cut? I think the person to look out for is. Hey everyone, Just Be here, and I'm breaking down the most recent episode of Power Before Force, aka The Tommy Show, Season 2, Episode 7, Chicago is Heating Up. Let's dive into the breakdown. Here we go. So this episode starts off with Tommy and Mayra connecting, and we see throughout that process Miguel ends up coming to Tommy's location somehow and almost catching them in the act of connecting. And through this process, we come to understand that Miguel is very much on eggshells. I mean, he is very, very worried about the state of his organization, his distros, and what's happening beneath him. Because at the end of the day, he feels like he's not getting enough respect or the go-ahead from Shay, who is directly from the cartel above him. And he needs to make a move on the Serbs, and he needs to make it quickly. And so we see here that the only person he seems to feel like he can trust is Tommy in this moment. And it's interesting because Tommy is the one that's been betraying him, taking his product and doing what he wants within the side, and he doesn't even know it. In this moment, Mayra is terrified for her life because she's still there, and Miguel, her brother, does not know she is there. And we see later on this episode where she comes back to Tommy's place after she gets off from work, and she is still worried. I mean, even though Tommy does his best to reassure her that, listen, I'm from Queens, I'm from the street, ain't nobody coming to hurt me, I got you. And she's trying to warn him, listen, he's killed past boyfriends of mine. Like, you don't know who you're dealing with, but this is Tommy. Tommy's, he's arrogant. He thinks he can handle whatever comes his way. And I think that the biggest part of Tommy's story is his arrogance. It's him thinking that he is invincible. This is a recurring theme that we see within season 2. Tommy's overly ambitious, and he also thinks that he's bulletproof, and he thinks that he's invincible. And we know somebody like that, when they start to get filled up with all that ego, eventually they got to get taken down. They got to get humbled by life. And so I believe that that's probably where we're heading with this particular character. He's going to get a big humbling by the end of this particular season. And in the midst of Mayra actually coming to Tommy's spot, she got caught by Jannard, who was sitting in across the road and taking photos of them. He was trying to wait to actually go ahead and get Tommy, I guess, but he took photos of her coming in, and now he has leverage on Tommy. And Jannard's he's not in the right state of mind. He just got let back into CBI, and he's ready to literally just risk it all at this stage for respect or whatever that is, right? But he thinks now he can use this photo of Mayra and Tommy together against them, and I don't know, maybe he will, but I don't know how far he's going to get with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my thing. What do you guys think about it? Do you think that was a smart move by Jannard to take that photo and now, you know, have that to possibly use one day? What do you guys feel about it? Let me know in the comments. Hold on real quickly. You guys want to see something crazy? Over 99% of you guys that watch my content are not subscribed. So I'm asking real quickly, if you don't mind, just hit the like button and hit subscribe real quickly. I'd love to keep on giving this content to you guys, and lets me know that people actually are interested. Feel free to do that, man. Really appreciate it a lot. Would help me out a long way in growing my small channel. Thanks. Now back to the video. Yeah, in this episode, we get to see a lot more of Shanti. I mean, after revealing that she's actually the villain in the last episode, they're really starting to show her more aggressive side for us. And we see her roughing up one of the guys from Jannard's crew. And yeah, she put the smack down on him and let him know who's in charge. And listen, you gotta love it, man. You gotta love it. And that's how you gotta demand respect, you know, in these kinds of organizations. You cannot be wimpy wimp, soft, and just going with the flow with whatever. You got to be able to show strength amongst the people around you, and don't let them know that or make them feel as if they can make a move without you and without your say so. I love how we got to see more of the world building in Chicago in this episode, particularly as they were trying to put together the coalition of all the different territories and gangs in the city that move product. We now get a feel of how these lines are all connected and who respects who and who's got to beef with who and so on and so forth. So in the middle of this coalition meeting, I mean, these guys are already beefing, and Tommy and Diamond are literally trying to reason with them and say, listen, we stronger together. all right? We could take over this whole thing and nobody got no beef with nobody. We could all be making money. We could all be doing well. There's one particular gang that's missing from this meeting that is probably the key to it all, and that is the DSDs. And I think that in this world here, they are probably the biggest, I guess, sort of gang with the most respect, the most clout in Chicago. So Tommy and Vic go ahead later on to pay them a visit to try to negotiate terms, to try to bring them into the fold, bring them into the coalition, and so everyone can go ahead and have some peace, and we can go ahead and start to rule the city under one banner. But of course, as soon as they roll up, Tommy, he thinks he knows everything, right? As soon as he rolls up, what they do, they blow out the back of his windshield, his rear windshield, and pull up to him with a shotgun. And Tommy, again, believing that he's bulletproof, believing that he can talk his way out of anything, ends up in a situation that he doesn't even know is already turned against him. Because the reality is that earlier in the episode, Miguel made it known to his team and his crew that he's going to get to the DSDs and work out something with them as a way to circumvent anyone such as Tommy making a move. Because at this stage, Abuela Garcia is very, very hesitant of any sort of affiliation with Tommy. She doesn't trust him at all. And so she's trying to talk some sense into Miguel to let him know, listen, here's how we came to this country. And your grandfather made the same mistakes that you're making right now. Don't be him because he ended up dead. And so that causes him to get on the offensive and make sure that, listen, I don't know if I can 100% trust Tommy, so let me make some moves of my own. Let me lock down the DSDs myself. So Tommy walks into the situation with Vic, and they're thinking that, you know what? They walked away shaking hands and all's going to be good. But the reality is that the situation's already flipped against him. And he doesn't know about that. And I want to put this here that one of the biggest lessons from this entire season is going to be, again, I want to reiterate it, Tommy's downfall is pride. It's going to be his arrogance. It's going to be him thinking that he's invincible and indestructible. I believe that season 1 of Force was him making his introduction into this territory. Season 2 sees him at his height, really building it up. And I think we're going to see near the ending part of this season and going into season 3, it's going to be seeing him now get hit. And he has to now come into the realization that, wow, going through the character development of what it means to be at the lowest point. And I believe that is possibly where we could be heading with the character of Tommy, him hitting a low point and realizing that he's not as indestructible as he thinks he is. Now, all throughout this episode, Vic is playing it fast and loose with the law enforcement task force who is committed to locking down Tommy as the head of the organization, obviously knowing that they are connected to all of the other cartels and connects and distros in the city. Their whole agenda, again, as we know, is to focus and hone in on him because they're familiar with him and how he moved from back in the day in New York. And they know once they get him, they can get everyone else. Now, law enforcement is getting much more impatient with Vic. And so they now move to put a wire on him when they are now having meetups. And he is completely against it, but he's powerless here because he signed a deal that if he wants immunity for killing his father and giving up everyone else, this is what he's got to do. And so he knows that, listen, wearing a wire, you get caught with that stuff, man, that is a one-way ticket to the grave. So they gave him this unique, small, undetectable wire, and he wears it to the meeting with Tommy at the DSDs. But near the end, as Tommy and Vic are wrapping up their day, moving through the city, and he's dropping them off, he realizes that someone's following them. And so Tommy goes ahead, scopes out the scene, and notices Agent Vargas in the corner waiting on someone. Vic goes to meet Agent Vargas, and lo and behold, what happens? Tommy confronts them. Tommy feels as if Vic is a snitch, which he's right. Vic is a snitch, right? But in that moment, Tommy tests Vic's loyalty and tells him, prove right now that you're not a snitch. You know what to do. Take him out. And Vic did something I was not expecting him to do. He surely took out Agent Vargas. And it was sad because just before the scene, literally Agent Vargas told Vic how, listen, I have a daughter and Tommy's actions was directly responsible for the death of a young girl on the streets. I don't want my daughter to suffer through and be the result of gang violence and product abuse violence in the city. And I think that causes Vic to kind of step back for a second, like, oh, okay, that humanizes his connection to Agent Vargas. But at the end of the day, he still pops one in him. And I didn't think Vic had it in him, but under pressure, he surely did. So now, I don't know, at this stage, this makes how many bodies for Vic this season? 2 or 3? I mean, that's insane. Vic went from the character of being the Disney Channel boy, as I saw him, to now this killer. And, you know, in some ways, you're like, oh, wow, you know, character transformation. But you're like, you are really, really, really hot, man. You're hot. Like, on these streets, you're hot. It don't look good for him. I know at one point I was saying that I believe Vic is going to be the guy who ends up clipped at the end of the season for being a snitch. I'm now of the persuasion that maybe Vic isn't. Maybe he is the person that the writers want us to think is. But really and truly, there might be another main cast member who's going to be getting axed at the end of the season and is going to get killed off. I don't know. I have some theories about it. I believe it might be one of the brothers, Diamond or Jenard, because I just think Vic is too much of an obvious choice. And, you know, come on. Shanti and Claudia certainly teamed up in this episode and became business partners, and they're moving through different parts of the city and at different parties. And at one point, Claudia and her friend gets robbed at a knife point at one of these parties, and Shanti has to step in and get their jewelry back and also lay the smackdown on the guys who tried to rob them. So now we see this out of the blue partnership that these two are starting to have, and you know, I'm waiting to see what more they're going to do with it, because where we thought Claudia was going to be defeated, you know, this season, with her being cut off by her father and her being cut off by Vic, who's the heir to the Flynn fortune at this stage, she always manages to bounce back. I don't know how, but she always manages to bounce back. I was having a conversation with someone who commented on one of my videos the other day, mentioned how the writers got to be careful with how they write the character of Claudia, because if she doesn't really have any real struggle, if everything seems to be handed to her, then you're not going to really care much for her development as a character. So that's how it kind of seems. Like in one episode, which was the last episode, she gets cut off, and in the same episode, she gets a new connect. You know, we don't have to actually see her deal with being at her lowest point, which is also a good point that commenter made. And last but not least, we have Diamond, who thinks that he can be both activist and public speaker while still moving weight. Diamond, you ain't no ghost. And the reality is that I think at the end of his time, I was going to say life, but at the end of his time, Ghost realized that it wasn't even possible to walk both of these worlds. That's a recurring theme that even Holly warned Tommy about in the last episode. You can't have it both ways. You can't have Gianna and Leon and have that nice little family unit there and also still be the guy pushing weight in the streets. And I think his parole officer is the voice of reason in his head, trying to let him know, listen, you came a long way, 15 years in prison, and you turned your life around. Now you're at a place now where you can do some real good in the community. And I think that plays a very, very strong moral weight in Diamond's thinking. And I think that, listen, if he doesn't walk away from CBI this season, I could see it happening next season. But certainly the guy has went through 15 years in the pen, and more than likely he is now going to consider the words of his PO officer and possibly walk away. I told you guys earlier in this season to some of my breakdown videos that I think that Diamond is soft. Aside from the last episode where he just kind of with one hand held the guy down who is Gianna's baby daddy. But I think he's kind of soft. He doesn't demonstrate strength for me, you know, the way that you need to, the muscle that you need to show when you're really the leader. And he's a little too playboyish for my taste to respect that he can really have the grit to lead CBI. I believe in the last 3 episodes of the season, we're going to see him really be in deeper conflict with the life and the life he truly and really wants. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. Let me know if there's anything that you guys thought that I missed. Put it down in the comment sections. Feel free, guys, also to like, comment, subscribe, and help the video out. Until next time, peace.